everyone. Welcome to another episode as we speak to another collector. I'm Jack.
I'm Jim.
And this is Jerome down below here with us today. We're going to look at his collection. I see a pretty modest collection back behind you there, Jerome. Give us a moment to, I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your collection.
All right. My name's Jerome. I'm from New York, Shoreham on Long Island. I've been collecting since I'm probably about 13, but got into Star Wars collecting when my first son was born, probably just over 12 years ago. Behind me, I have some of my, in my opinion, my more unique items on display, but the majority of my collection is mostly comic books. I got about 600 or so of them.
How many?
600-ish.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Thank you.
And you'll actually be our first comic book interviewee. So that'll be very interesting to see what information comes out from that.
That's great. And out of my collection, they are all Star Wars comics, exclusively Star Wars stuff.
Awesome.
I've seen some quite larger ones, but just Star Wars 600-ish.
So let me kind of jump into the first question, which is what type of items are you collecting? And obviously it's going to be comics, but in addition to comics, are there any action figures, vehicles, helmets, lightsabers?
Yeah, well, the majority, like I said, was comics. And for me, I guess you would consider myself, I like the weird stuff. The stuff that, like wrapping paper that was put out in the 80s for like wrapping up kids' gifts from like Star Wars themed papers. I like some of my favorite pieces are like these toothbrushes the dentist used to give out, unopened toothbrushes. They're not incredibly valuable, but like the artwork on them is amazing. The colors just pop, and the idea that like these things would be used for a few short times and then thrown away. I like that stuff over the plastic stuff so much more. So anything with paper that isn't really meant to be around 40, 50 years, I'm just attracted to that stuff a lot more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do have some plastic stuff. I do have some action figures. I do have a cool lightsaber. Like any true Star Wars collector, I think you kind of have to have one. We have 3. So we're doing all right.
Very cool. Very cool. I believe I know what the answer to this question is. Is there a particular series, story, or a particular movie that appeals to you?
Well, I mean, I like the vintage stuff the most, but the stuff that's coming out now. So, like my original comic run that I tried to chase down was that Marvel Volume 1 from '77 on. That one took a long time to track all the pieces down, and occasionally a piece leaves my collection and comes back in. But as far as like series and shows, my kids and I are very much into the stuff that's out that's current. We love watching Mandalorian. The stuff that Filoni and Favreau are putting out, it's just the storytelling is amazing. The idea of like things we grew up and read in books are now being tied together and becoming canon. And like when you see certain characters pop up on screen, it makes your heart stop for a second. You're like, I know that guy. I know that guy. I read about him. And my kids are like, who's that? Who's that? And then we have like cool conversations afterwards. But the new stuff is beautiful, but the vintage stuff is my favorite.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned The Mandalorian. I just happened last night to watch episode 3 of the third season, and it was interesting because it answered a couple of questions from the 2 previous episodes. But then there was that whole thing with the doctor and that girl kind of ensnaring him into something. And I kind of thought, where did that come from? And I thought, well, is this something that's like what we're seeing in Andor, where they're trying to spread it out a little bit story-wise? I kind of ended up a little confused last night with that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I'm a teacher, and I do extra help in the morning, except for Wednesday morning, because Wednesday morning I wake up early and we watch the episodes, me and my boys together, before going to school. But yeah, I got the same feeling. Like it was a very the doctor based show, but it made you wonder, like, is he being entrapped by somebody who has been brought on by the older remnants of the Empire to bring back that cloning technology? That was the feel of it, in my opinion, but it's definitely interesting. It's great writing. I can't wait every Wednesday morning to watch it with my boys.
She kind of reminded me of the security officer in Andor.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Similar
So
types of personalities. You know, Jim, my comment to your question there was, I almost see it as they're setting up the first stages of Heir to the Empire, which was a novel series from back in the day. And if you look over Jerome's shoulder there, he's got the Heir to the Empire book sitting right there.
This is one of my favorites, and it's this guy, Timothy Zahn, his autographs in there.
Wow.
So my favorite, parts of Star Wars are the storytelling. So if you ask me who my favorite guys were, my favorite contributors were, it'd be Timothy Zahn, Roy Thomas, Filoni, and Favreau. Timothy Zahn, I've read that book so many times, I can't stop reading that book. I love it.
Very interesting. I'm happy that we had that quick conversation there. Jim, something else to ask?
So you did say you've got what, about 600 different comics there?
Yeah. It's honestly, it sounds like a crazy number, but I like to think that it's not. But it's a considerable amount. It's like two big, 3 or 4 medium boxes, but just exclusive Star Wars runs. And I have this little app on my phone to keep track of it. It's ridiculously helpful. Before that, I'd be sitting there doing Excel spreadsheets and typing in what I have, and then it was hard to find holes in what I was missing. I use this little thing called CLZ Comics, and you literally scan the barcode on the book, it uploads it, and then like it can tell you what you're missing, so you can go out and find it. But yeah, I have a considerable amount. I have about 30 I have to enter into the app later tonight or this weekend that I just picked up.
So I did, as I watched some of your videos in regards to the comics, there's a number of different characters or stories or storylines. There was Star Wars, there was Darth Vader, there's the Bounty Hunter series, the High Rubable. Maybe I didn't write that down so I could read it.
The High Republic, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can see where Republic comes from. At Thrawn, Age of the Rebellion, Age of the Resistance, Age of the Republic, and then the Boba Fett.
And there's probably even more. Like when Marvel got the rights and they popped back in after Dark Horse in like 2015, the writing for it was amazing. So I started grabbing Star Wars, which would be Volume 2, and their new Darth Vader book in 2015. And from there, it just branched out into everything you just mentioned, and probably even more that even somebody like me is unaware of. But the Dark Horse books in the 90s were really, really good stories. And that's where Marvel picked up from them, and they really picked it up in their storytelling. And a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in the comics now is starting to pop into some of the shows that we're seeing on Disney Plus now.
Interesting. There was one particular comic that I caught, and I just kind of wanted to ask a question about it. But before I ask the question, I also want to reference that we did also do an interview with what we're going to call Hollywood James. And he had a large poster that referred to this, but La Guerrera de Galaxias, which is French, yes?
Spanish.
It is Spanish. Now, according to Hollywood James, I thought he said that was French.
I'd have to double check, but I have issue 1 and I believe issue 13. I grabbed them because the unique thing about those, one, I love the paper, I love the comics, I love the artwork, but the staples in the binding, there's only one staple as opposed to American comics with 2. So, in my opinion, like cut down on the staples, the chance of finding them in really good condition just drops dramatically. So if it's in average condition, the value is a little bit better. But yeah, there was a lot of controversy on that. Like the Star Wars fandom we're all a little crazy in our own way. So when I put a picture of that onto like a Star Wars collectible website, people will literally attack you saying that it's fake, it's a bootleg, you have to do a lot of research and almost in a way be ready to defend it, or even if or not care that it might be fake, and you just enjoy it for what it is. But I thought they were really unique pieces. Those are ones that there's so many different places to get things. I think I got those off of eBay for a really good price after contacting back and forth for a while. But those were interesting books. I like them a lot.
Well, I agree with you, because it, to me, and even before I even met Hollywood James and I read that, in fact, somewhere around here, I actually think I have a picture of that same La Guerrera, which I interpreted as Spanish or Latin of some form. And maybe his version was printed in France. Wasn't that the poster that was behind us when we did the interview, Jack?
Yeah, I believe it was. But if it starts with the LE, I think that is French. If it was Spanish, it'd be LA or.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the lay does make it French, but because of that Guerrera, it does look Spanish. So yeah, it's almost like borrowing from both, it seems like.
Now you got me thinking. Now I got to double check it later.
Okay, so in addition to the comics, and I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, I also saw cards, trading cards, or what kind of cards are they?
Yeah, I have them right here. I have like piles and piles of the old wax packs from Series 1. Not Series 1. I wish I had the Series 1. Series 5, Series 3, Empire Strikes Back packs. They got the gum in them still. Yeah, we did open one, and we were debating on tasting that gum, but I just couldn't let my kids taste it. I was gonna let them be the guinea pig and give it a shot, but it turned to like chalky dust as you opened it, and we just didn't want to know part of that stuff. But those
That's
wax
really
packs, I like that. They're just harder and harder to find unopened, especially that green series. That green series has like that famous, infamous C3PO mistake error card, the goldenrod card in it. So when people find those, they hope to get it, so they open it, and they usually don't find that one. So they're tough. They're tough to find, the green packs.
The only one I have is.
Oh, nice. I remember him. Yeah.
And Jerome, since we're talking about cards right now, I did notice on the video and the pictures that you sent earlier, you had a framed board of some cards, and those looked like Series 1 cards to me.
The framed ones are prior to that. No, the framed ones are from Wonder Bread. So when you'd go to the supermarket with your mom and she was going shopping and she was picking out bread and you were a little kid, you would pull on her and yell at her and say, "I want Wonder Bread because there's a Star Wars card in there." And when you'd open it up, there'd be a Star Wars card, one out of, I'm looking around the corner because they're right here, 4, 8, 12, 16 cards.
That's right.
More often than not, the cards would be kind of bent or folded because they were in a plastic bag with bread. But I managed to get my hands on a complete set in really nice condition, all framed up. It was already like that when I got it. I couldn't pass it up because I know how hard they are to find in nice condition.
Sure.
I'm debating on sending them out to be graded. That, in my opinion, they're probably all hovering around a 9, which would be really nice to find out. But I've never had a card graded before. I don't even know how to go about it. I've had comics graded before, but never cards.
I'm very interested in questioning you about the grading and things, and I've got that a few questions down the road here. In addition to the cards, were there also some decals?
Decals, like stickers and things like that. Or
yeah.
I have like a bunch of different types of stickers. This is one of the things I got from Santa Claus. I got an unopened box of album stickers, and it has really cool graphics on, like explaining to the store, the owner of the store, how to open and display these sticker boxes. And there's, I think, 60 little stickers in here. And somewhere I get the sticker album down in the back that's completely empty. My kids keep wanting me to open it up to fill the box in. I think I'm probably just gonna have to buy them one already filled in and let them look at it, because they're not horribly hard to find, but to find one that was kind of special to me to find that one. Well, Santa got it for me. Sorry.
Santa,
Very cool.
especially in the box like that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a
Then
good
you
one.
also had a large number of what I'm going to call prints.
Yeah, I do have not a, I wouldn't say a very large number of prints, but occasionally I'll come across things where it's up for debate. Like, was it used to make comics in a newspaper? I have everyone's got their guys that they go to. I have a guy who works at Midtown Comics. I have a guy who works at an antique shop. Some people say yes, this was definitely used. Some people say no. So like right now, like I still need to do more research as to if they were used. I'm leaning towards, as much as it breaks my heart, that they may not have been used. I think they were cut out of a larger book. And the reason I think that is because there's a copyright, like by the Star Wars logo in the corner. And the idea is like, if there's a copyright, it was probably already printed and used prior to that. It was probably cut out of a book, but it's still very beautiful, like artwork and ink work regardless. So I'm probably going to frame them up and put them in my little modest basement that I have going on.
And then I also have another thing noted here, portfolio followed by a question mark. And I'm not sure what spurred me on to question portfolio.
Portfolio.
Maybe I interpreted it as something else. So I'll kind of move on then.
Okay.
In addition to the toothbrushes, there was also Pez dispensers.
Yeah. I've got, they're right over out of my head right now. I've got a whole bunch of Pez dispensers. They're on display. I'll even turn this around. They're on display on top of my little Pac-Man video game.
Oh, yeah, there they are.
They're hanging out right
cool.
there.
Very cool.
I love the candy stuff. So I got my Pez dispensers there, and stuff I grew up with. My ice cream man used to sell stuff like this, so I got a box of these candies as well, and it's a full complete box, which like made me like I couldn't pass it up. And they're all little plastic heads of Bosk and Yoda, Tauntaun, and each one still has candy in them. Again, my kids found out there were candy in them. One out of three of my kids would have probably eaten it, but being a parent and all, I probably can't let that happen. Or a collector.
And then there was also cups. There was also cups. And the thing that I noted about the cups was it wasn't just a cup, but it had a cap that went on top of it that was like a Millennium Falcon or an X-Wing.
Oh, I think I know what you're referring to. I'm going to tilt down a little bit. The cups are right about here. Those are old plastic cups, some from 77, some from 80. But those aren't caps. Those are die-cast figures.
Aha.
So these are the die-cast figures that were put out on their own card backs that I just have them sitting on there. I have to come up with a better way to display these things. I'm trying to convince that I need more space, but with all the kids in the basement being theirs most of the time, I can't really expand too much without infringing on their space and other spaces that are my wife's little crafting area in the corner and things like that.
Well, and interesting enough that one of the questions again down the road will be how is it that you're displaying stuff, but we'll kind of come back to that for the moment. Back to my normal set of questions. I believe Jack has a particular question at this point.
Well, just going through all this collection, I marvel that there are so many different comic book brands out there, no pun intended, with the Marvel, obviously the DC, there's so many different things, but what is it about Star Wars? Why did you cling to Star Wars? What did it do for you that made you want to collect all this stuff?
I'm not 100% sure. I just remember like growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. And I remember like around holidays and Christmas and like my birthday, I would get something and it was usually Star Wars related. So I think my parents kind of knew that I liked sci-fi stuff. I ended up collecting. This is one of my favorite pieces. This is one of the first Star Wars things I ever got. I got this when I was probably, 5 or 6 years old.
One of the things I was going to ask about, yes.
And this has never been opened. It's been sitting around for near 40 years, never opened, still got the tape on it. But I remember getting this for probably Christmas when I was probably about as young as that kid right there. And my parents didn't have a lot of money, but they went out of their way to find things I was interested in. And I remember I had knockoff Boba Fett helmet and like the cheap $5 lightsaber. And for Easter one year, we got like I got Wicket the Ewok. I ended up getting it. My daughter took it, opened it, took it out of the box, took all its clothes off. I was like, oh, well, that's ruined. But for me, it was just the stories behind it and the amazing cinematography that you could see while watching these movies. It looked so good that it just felt real, and it made you think that like all this stuff was possible. So that was like my catch on it when I was younger.
You know, I'll share a little piece of trivia with you on that Chewbacca bandolier box that you have there. That's actually Jim on the box. That's Jim as a boy on the box right there.
Going way back.
I heard they were like a mail away giveaway in the UK, but like here you could purchase them in like Toys R Us or KB Toys or something like that.
For sure. Yeah, the bandolier. Absolutely.
So your motivation for collecting, is it an investment for your own personal self, for things that you like to look at? Why is it that you're collecting these items?
I mean, I'd like to think that one day, like, I'd be able to like say, hey, it's worth X amount of dollars. It's so hard to put a price on it. So like part of it is an investment, like part of it is, but it's like there's a passion within the investment. And there are things that I enjoy and I like to look at. Now, the tough part about comics is if I put these things on display, it's going to wallpaper my house. So I can't quite display. I display some books on my walls in the basement, but if every few months I'll go through, I'll put them out in stacks of 50, look through them, check for conditions, check for variations. But for me, like there is a small amount of like putting these away for the future for my kids. You saw in one of my videos, there's a gap in my collection. Like I have an issue 1 from '77, but it's not. It's the second print. It's the diamond one. I had a beautiful issue 1 and a 9.6 CGC graded issue 42. The time came where I was like, we're going down to Disney. We don't go on vacation often. Like it's been years since we've been on vacation. I'm like, Disney tickets ain't cheap. So I let 2 of my favorite books go so we can go into an extra park. So like to me, like, yeah, I might have spent 50, 60 bucks on those books 10 years ago, sold them for hundreds. So like it hurts, but we got such great memories out of it. And I know an opportunity will come down the road later where I'll be able to fill in those holes. So partial investment when the price is right and you spend 20 bucks on something that's worth 200, it hurts, but you let it go. I let it go. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about grading at this point.
Sure.
But before I go into the actual grading portion, in particular with regards to comics, you're in some type of a sleeve, like an acrylic sleeve. Tell me a little bit about that acrylic sleeve.
Yeah, it's actually I'll grab one. There's one down here. So
And while you're looking for that, me and Jack just had a conversation about considering trying to make those and to resell them. And what we really kind of came down to was they're mass produced out of China, I'm sure. And so it was very difficult to compete against the price, you know, assuming that I was going to have a local acrylic manufacturer. I do aquariums. And so I was going to have an aquarium manufacturer who handles acrylic build these things, but I don't think we can come anywhere near the price of a lot of these, just call them imported versions. And so my questions with regards to the cases are, 1, what kind of quality is it? And 2, when you send something in and get it back from being graded, are you able to open up that case?
You can crack them open. You can. And sometimes people crack them open because they might not be agreeing with the grade, and then they can take that book, and this is like a gray area here. Some comic collectors are all okay with this, and others just want it as is. Like they will take it and they'll put it in a heat press, and they'll press the book in a heat press to take out a tiny wrinkle or imperfection that might be in the book, and then send it back in. Or you pay for the professionals to do that for you. So they can do heat pressing, they can do little cleanups or touch-ups on the books, and then after they're done, then they grade it. So the idea is that, like, once it's in this plastic casing, it's a hard, tough plastic. My intention is to not break it out. Like, I only get certain books graded that they're special books to me. Like, this is a variant version of issue 1 from 2015. I only have 2 variants, so I sent one in and got a pretty good grade on it. So now there's zero question about the condition of that book. So I've seen so many times at like little mini conventions or at the local shop where there's disagreements between, all right, that's an 8 or it's a 9, and the differences for a really old book could be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Now, none of these are really thousands of dollars. Like, my collection, nice, but it's not crazy nice. But some of those earlier versions, like issue 1, issue 42, 9/6s can be $600, $700, $800 if they're graded professionally by a company like CGC. It can take some time though. The last one that I sent in was that issue 42. It took me 13 months to get it back. It's a long time. And I sent in this guy here, and I have no idea why. This guy came back in like 3 months. I don't understand. I know that they've been like completely, swamped. I guess people around during the time of the pandemic were sitting around and going through their collections because they were stuck at home and had a little bit of extra money. Like, now's the time to send my collection in. But it's getting better. So 6 months I hear is average. 3 months for like for some of the newer books. Like, I have like Mandalorian 1 that came back like no time. So it all depends on, I think it's a little bit of luck, to be honest. But the older books take a lot longer.
So they're really scrutinizing it, or just backed
Yeah,
up. And of course,
they're supposed to go through a whole bunch of different checkpoints. They go through color, for creasing, for cracks, for wrinkles, for fingerprints that are on the book. So like something as small as a little thumbprint that leaves a little bit of acid off of somebody's finger from a kid taking it off the rack. Now it's not a 9/8, now it's a 9/6, or something that simple. So
wow.
the idea of getting a book that's from 1977, 1980, that's a 9/4, 9/6, 9/8, it's really tough. It's tough. And the 10, it doesn't exist. Not in those years. Like, even like a book coming off the press today, a 10 is 1 a year if you're lucky.
Wow. Wow.
And that value, it's like you just add a 0 to the back of that value. If it's worth $100 as a 9, at a 10, it's worth $1,000 or more. It's unbelievable what it does to the value.
And the quality of those acrylic cases, good quality?
Oh yeah, they're great. They're hard plastic. They're museum quality, so you don't have to worry about sunlight damaging your book anymore. You don't have to worry about if it's in a home with a smoker or something like that. I don't think anyone smokes anymore anyway. But they protect the book for the life of the case.
Not at $10 a pack for cigarettes.
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculous.
True. You get at least 3 or 4 comic books for that. Much better investment.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. Going back to when you are you putting your comics in cases and not having them graded, or are you only putting the comics in the acrylic cases as a result of being graded?
Well, when you send them to the company, they grade it for you. Okay. I can come up with my best estimate. I've been doing it for a while. I'm pretty close. Like, I won't send a book in that I don't think is going to get a grade that I'm expecting. So like, I sent in Heir to the Empire, like the first Thrawn appearance, and I was hoping for an 8.5, and it came back as a 9. So it's like, all right, to me, it's a pretty good value. Cost me around $35, $37 to have it graded. So with that grade now locked in as a 9, if you went to buy the book off a rack, it might cost you $40, but as a 9, it might cost you $120 now, but it's locked up. So this is another one of those gray areas. There's a lot of comic guys out there that are like, it's locked up forever. They're meant to be read. But they have this crazy thing called the internet, and you can go online and you can read the comics or you can buy an omnibus and read it as many times as you want, and you can still collect and look at it and invest in it and not worry about the value changing because you're touching it too much.
And the other question I had was, when you place these items, whether graded or not, in the cases, and you've already mentioned you're limited on display space. So
Yeah.
where are these comics typically sitting?
Yeah. I don't have a very large amount graded, but mine are all board and backed and in really good plastic sleeves. I mean, they're right here to my side. I keep my volume 1 in a hard plastic case because these ones, to me, they're just, even your basic one is worth $10, even at okay condition. And I try to keep them all in order, all nice and neat, and in there. And what I do is I keep my app. I think I pay like $15 a year for that CLZ app. And as I get books and I grade them in my opinion, and then I'll put them into a box, and then I'll scan the box number with my app. So if I ever have like an issue or where I need to find a book, I'll just go into my app, be like, I need Star Wars 42, and I click, and it's like, all right, it's in box 3 in the basement, and then I know where to find it.
Okay. Okay.
And you can link it to current market values too, and it can give you a spreadsheet, and that way you can find the value of your collection, which I haven't done yet because I'm kind of scared to.
So my next question is the importance of the items collected. Now, before you answer the question, right back here are the first 20 issues. To me, the importance was just having them so I could admire them or display them or whatever. What the quality of them is, I have no idea. And so my question to you is, what is the importance of the items you're collecting? Are they for the value? Are they for the higher quality? Or is it just to amass a collection?
It's a little, so for the new stuff, I just want to get one of each issue. It doesn't matter to me if it's a variant cover. I just want to keep the track running because I read the stories and I keep them as nice as I can. But for the older stuff, I kind of want them all. I kind of want like every variant cover. Those, I don't have many yet, but like the slight difference in the Canadian version versus the American version, or the second printing, or a reprint, or the diamond corner. Those 35-cent Holy Grail issue 1 through 4. That I've only seen one in my hands once. They didn't want to sell it. It looked like it was flushed down a toilet and crumpled up, and it was still worth a lot of money. So for the old stuff, I want them all. For the new stuff, I'd be happy to just keep my sequence going so I can keep reading the story.
And Jerome, I'm a big 3.75 action figure guy, specifically with Star Wars. And I do see some 3.75s up behind you there. I also saw some boxed items. When talking about action figures for just a moment here, are those more important to you just to have them loose or boxed? How does that work?
I would love to have on-card action figures, but you know, they are really expensive. And honestly, like I know people would probably try to fight me on this, but I feel like every toy store in the world was these things were the thing to get. They were inexpensive and they had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I love them. They're great, but in my opinion, like I just feel like they're so expensive, and they're really not that hard to find unless, like what you're saying, is it still in the bubble? Is it still on the card? And does it display well like that? Like then the value just skyrockets, or are you sending those out to get graded? So I just grab these when I'm out looking for the stuff that I really, really enjoy. But like I try to get one that are in as nice as condition as I can, that can be displayed, or loose figures, and if it has the accessories, it's a bonus. And I try to get the characters I like. The guy that is local to me, this guy Milo Toys, he's great because he has auctions every Thursday night. And every Thursday night, he throws some Star Wars stuff in there because he knows I'm going to buy it. So I end up getting 1 or 2 things a Thursday night. and I'm local, so I can just pick it up. And every once in a while, he gets buckets of these figures in there, and I go in and I pick through, and I'll grab 5 for $20, and just because they're not very valuable. The ones I have, the ones you're talking about, they're out of my league when it comes to the price tag for those things.
Who is the supreme commander of the droid army? General Grievous. Thank you for supporting our channel. May the Force be with you.
Hello, I would like to take a few moments to discuss with you a serious affliction that may be affecting many of us. Collector's disease. This can occur with one or more issues when we begin to collect Star Wars action figures and collectibles. Psychological factors can play a role in both the motivation for keeping a collection and the impact it has on the collector's life. These factors can be positive or negative. The hobby of collecting often goes hand in hand with an interest in objects collected and what they represent. For example, collecting postcards may reflect an interest in different places and cultures. For this reason, collecting can have educational benefits. Some collectors even become experts in their field. Maintaining a collection can be a relaxing activity that counteracts the stress of life, while providing a purposeful pursuit which prevents boredom. The hobby can lead to social connections between people with similar interests and the development of new friendships. Collecting for most people is a choice, but for some it can be a compulsion, sharing characteristics with obsessive hoarding. When collecting is passed between generations, it might sometimes be that children have inherited symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. Collecting can sometimes reflect a fear of scarcity or of discarding something and then later regretting it. It's been speculated that the widespread appeal of collecting is connected to the hunting and gathering that once was necessary for human survival. Collecting is also associated with memory by association and the need for a human brain to catalog or organize information and give meaning to one's actions. Whether you've been collecting for years or are looking to begin your first collection, there are many collectibles to choose from. Whatever you choose, take pleasure in the art of building a collection. In the end, collecting is something that is meant to be enjoyed. Whether you view it as a scavenger hunt, a great way to expand your horizons, or simply a way to brighten your home, collecting can be an enriching and rewarding experience for all family members. Most importantly, though, be aware of its consequences. But above all, enjoy it and have fun. I'm Jim Stein, and may the Force be with you.
This is Jack in the Box. We finally get our box back from CAS.
Me? Poetry?
We don't just spread fun through action figures, we get close and personal with the actors that played these characters.
I'm Nick Joseph, and I played Major Arhul Extrafon.
You were the one that banged his head in that door?
Yes, that's me, yes.
And then they dressed me as a Hoth rebel.
Be sure to subscribe and binge watch all of our episodes. Thanks for tuning in to Jack in the Box. Well, going through the video that you sent us earlier, I did see that you had like a Ralph McQuarrie concept card. It was like a 2-pack that they were still, MOC, mint on card. What was the thrill about that particular one?
Paper. It's almost as old as I am, and it was done on a piece of poster board. So like for anything on paper, I don't know what it is. It's just my dad. He has his own business. He does box and display work, and he's done so many displays for movies and cartoons, and the idea that these things were printed on paper in a factory that could have been like my dad's, and they're not supposed to last. They're supposed to be used and then ripped and thrown away. Or, luckily I have a couple, and maybe someday I'll get to framing them and I'll wallpaper my wall in those. But the Ralph McQuarrie stuff, the guy, unbelievable visionary as to what he took from what George Lucas was trying to explain and put it into paint. It's unbelievable what his imagination did for the Star Wars universe. So you have to have some respect for that guy.
Sure.
So you had mentioned you started collecting when you were about 13 years old. And so you've been collecting for how long now has that been?
So I started around 13. I would ride my bike to the local comic shop and try to go to like the little flea markets down the road. And I collected mostly baseball cards and mostly comic books, but everything. I had no direction whatsoever. And then right around like 17, 18, I stopped. I stopped collecting stuff. It was like 1995, 96, 97. It was not cool, and I lost my way. And I started discovering other things.
Girls.
And, yeah, I started discovering other things. And I got away from it. And it was kind of like, almost like in like the 90s, like it was like almost like a secret for a kid in high school that was reading comic books. And then like, as you grow up, you become a little more wise, a little more comfortable in your skin. You're like, I'm just going to do whatever the hell makes me happy. And if this is it, like this ain't hurting anybody. Like, so I got back into it right around when my son was born, about 12 years ago. And we started displaying artwork for comic books above his crib. And then I went through my old stuff and I just wasn't into it like I used to be. So I sold off my collection and focused into the stuff that I loved growing up, the Star Wars stuff, when I was, 1980s kid running around in the yard with all this stuff.
Interesting. I'm curious, those pictures you hung above your son's crib, do you think that influenced him somehow?
Maybe. My oldest son is so into science, technology, and like STEM learning. One of my favorite pieces is something he made like 2 weeks ago. He's 12 years old and he's learning how to 3D print.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
The first thing he 3D printed. And he's like, Dad, I made this for you. It's supposed to be a keychain, but I don't want it to break. So I was like, that is the coolest thing a 12-year-old is learning to do in school that I could imagine. And I love that the school district that we're in gives these kids these opportunities. Yeah. And he's already thinking he wants to be like a game developer or some type of engineer. I mean, I had no direction at 12. He has at least has some interest. So I love it.
That's great. So coming back down to your displays, the space that you have, you said, I think you were down in the basement and you kind of had one wall there, and I can see a big cabinet in the back, but yet I see posters and pictures off to the side. The other side of the room, you had something there. So your displays, are they all over the walls? Or all they?
I have some artwork. I have like some artwork behind me over there. That's a scene from The Mandalorian. I have some artwork over there and heading up the stairs and some uncut card sheets and things like that. I'm limited. I mean, I wish I had a little more space, but at the same time, it's probably not good if I have more space because I know I'll probably get into a little trouble. And I know one day my wife is going to see this interview, and I'm going to tell you guys anyway that sometimes when I buy something, it doesn't get shipped to the house. It gets shipped right to my classroom. And I keep it in my classroom on display there. And then, like, when we're all happy and we come back from vacation, hey, when did you get that Thrawn statue? I'm like, that's been there for years. No, I have stuff shipped to my school district. You do what you got to do.
Right. And the displays, such as that cabinet behind you, is that repurposed from something else?
Yeah.
Did you build that? Was it purchased?
I'm a big like reuser. I don't like to spend a lot of money on stuff like that. I'd rather spend it on, my kids, putting money away for school, or things we need, or my collection. So I got this little display cabinet for like 25 bucks off of Marketplace and drove down and threw it in the back of my truck and drove it right here. And it was filled up like that. That's the problem. So now it's like, now what do I do? So it's constantly like rotating, and it's filled, and then it's displayed a different way and rotating in and out. Whatever I like that week goes back into the display case until we get a bigger house.
and as a fish guy or an aquarium guy, whenever I look at a new apartment or a new house, I'm going,
Where are my
can I put
tanks
the
going?
aquarium? Where can I put the aquarium? In your
You
case,
gotta get one of those through the wall tanks so you can see through the tank to the next room. Those are cool.
yes. So with your displays, is there any particular style of lighting that you're using to illuminate them?
No, because we were in the middle of a basement renovation, I just got my lights in here. So there's one little mini can light at the top of this display. It's kind of pitiful. It's really not a nice way to display. The one thing I would like to do is on the wall around the corner, I have my last favorite piece. I have a stormtrooper helmet that a couple of students that I worked with in my high school for set design and set building and science Olympiad. One of their dads was a member of the local 501st chapter, and he won this helmet at a San Diego Comic-Con. And I have it on display on my wall around the corner here, right there.
Oh, very cool. Very
And I
cool.
wanted to do like an LED red light behind it.
Uh-huh.
But we'll get there eventually.
Very cool. I
That's
like
a
that.
nice piece right
actually,
there.
I'm looking to get a stormtrooper. I just got my first helmet the other day. It's an X-Wing fighter's helmet, and that kind of started the bug. And I've been looking on eBay lately to see what other ones are on
Yeah,
there.
that's the problem. So I got that one helmet, and it's not like your out of the box Black Series. It was made and molded off of a helmet used in the film in '77. So I'm like, this is really special.
Wow.
And I was shocked that these students were able to help me get this thing. So I'm like, now I want more. Like you, I'm like, it's kind of like I know it's like there's certain things like I will not buy, not because there's anything wrong with them, because I know that if I do, there's so many of them that I'll want, like Funko Pops and bobbleheads. Like I don't own one because I know once I buy one, I'm gonna want a lot of them.
Interesting you bring up Funko. Next weekend, we're interviewing a young lady from Hawaii who's into Funko. And just to prep myself for that interview, I looked up last night, what is Funko all about? And turns out it's a particular mom and pop business that started it. And that's the name they created for these variations that they created on the characters. And really throughout the whole article, it never really did talk about Star Wars. It was a whole nother group of cartoon characters, and that particular business has been resold or bought out 2 or 3 times since.
Very well for themselves.
Yes, very well.
I only went to one New York City Comic-Con. We took the day off of school for a Friday. Don't tell my boss. And I grabbed my 2 sons and we bought tickets and went in. The line around the Funko display, there were people walking out with shopping bags just filled with had to be 50 to 80 figures. And it was an amazing experience, that New York City Comic Con. But the problem was there had to be 40,000 people in there.
Oh my God.
And the other thing was like, it was just so expensive. So like, in my opinion, I'm looking for certain books to fill my run. And I'm like, all right, in my mind, I'm like, this book is worth $20. New York City Comic Con, $75. So I'm like, I can't even like enjoy finding the things I need to fill. But it was really cool to see like-minded people enjoying the day, speaking to artists. Like that was my favorite part. Looking at all the original artwork, could never afford any of it, but looking at it was really nice. But and my kids, you can see they enjoyed it. That's where we got our lightsabers.
The camaraderie of everybody there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So going back to your display, is there any particular arrangement? Is there any order to it, or just fits here and there?
Like like-minded things together. I have like lunch boxes and old I have like the Ben Cooper box costumes. I have Darth Vader 77, I think 80, and I have a very odd blue Yoda one that
That's cool.
my daughter surprised me wearing once. I was like, no, take it off. But yeah, I try to keep things kind of together that go together in my mind. Like I have my 3.75s up top. With limited space, it's kind of like where does it fit more than I would love to have a little more space to arrange things almost by movie, by year even would be nice. But it's very limited on its organization in there because I think of the space.
And of course, I think I already know the answer to this question, which is your display expandable or room to grow? But it sounds like you're kind of limited, at least at the moment.
Yeah, the other fear is that, I mean, my kids are 12, 8, and 5, and they're down here. There's a TV on the wall. There's, and then to the right of my autographs from Jeremy Bullock. And like, if I expand out, they're kids, man. They're going to go ahead and do what kids do. And I don't want to be like putting them or my stuff in harm's way. So I think as they get older and someday they find their way, then I'll move into this side of my basement where it's safer for the collection and no one gets hurt. That would be the plan. But we're looking, I mean, my daughter's 5. That's 13, 14, 15 years from now where she might find her way out. So, but I'll still be collecting then.
One of the reasons we're doing this YouTube channel is to help other collectors with their collections. And being a long-term collector, where would you say is one of the better sources to find some of these items? Is it online? Is it Comic Cons? Is it local stores? What do you do?
Well, I like the convention to see. So the convention sparked interest for me to find things that I liked, that I was attracted to. But for me, the pricing at the convention, unless you're somebody with unlimited means, by all go get it. But for me, I enjoy much more. For example, right now I'm missing that #1 issue from '77 that I sold. I know my guy Anthony at Androids Comics that I go to every 3 weeks where I pick up my fullback. He's got one graded and it's a 9.4. I know exactly what he would charge me for it. But I want to find the one at an estate sale or at, in a rack somewhere and spend $100 on it or $50 on it. And it just feels more special to know, like, you found, it's like panning for gold. Like you found a nugget. Like it just feels better than to just go out, for me, to go out and drop the exact value on something and to put it on my wall. Now I've done that for a couple items that I just fell in love with and I had to have, so I didn't mind. But I'm holding out until I find that loose in the wild and get it graded myself, as opposed to someone else doing all the work for me and making all the money off of me too.
Well, it's also good that you've got some control on it too. A lot of people just have to have it, regardless as to how soon or how long or how much.
It'll come when it comes for me. Like when the time is right, I'll find it. Like for a good example is as a little kid, I had a Millennium Falcon. Haven't had one in forever. Found one on Mercari for $30. It was on, so I get little alerts where I follow saved searches. 79 Millennium Falcon pops up for $30. I don't even ask a question. Bought it. And open it up and it has everything in it except for the table. I bought the table for $10 on eBay. Boom, I have a complete Millennium Falcon. To me, I love doing that much more than walking into the shop, finding one for $225 and just going, here you go. I have what I wanted. I feel like I earned it. I went out and did the work for it. I waited and found what I wanted, and it just happened to be at the right time.
Very cool. Interesting question or thing that you posed, that table for the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Would you have considered that an original piece, or was it a 3D printed piece?
When I was searching for it, it was so many of them were popping up, and people seem to be honest. Like 3D printed replica. I did not buy the replica. I bought the original piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we had another interview we just did with an actual seller who I learned a whole lot from him, from his point of view. And I kind of got the impression that there's a lot of, and I'll use the word purist out there.
Yeah.
And that's not meant to be derogatory. That's meant to be congratulatory, because they're willing to wait out or hold out for
Wait
those
out, pay
pieces.
more, find it, make sure it's the right piece for the right part. Yep.
I've got
Absolutely.
a couple of AT-ATs here that were missing pieces. And to me, it didn't matter at the time. And to a certain degree, it still doesn't matter whether they were 3D printed or if they were original parts, because it allowed me to complete that figure, or at least that display.
Yeah, we're actually we're in the talks, my wife and I, about getting a 3D printer. So, because like I mentioned, my oldest son is very into STEM learning, and like he builds little robots, and he printed my little my little TIE fighter, and like there are planes you can just download and print portions of helmets and piece them together, and it's very artistic, it's very science based, it's all the stuff we're into, and the technology is becoming more and more affordable. Like I remember when these things came out, they were like $4,000 or $5,000 for a printer. Now you can get a decent 3D printer for $300-400. And a friend of mine is teaching kids in my high school how to use it. So I pop in, I watch, I pick up what I can. And I think we're this close to being on the same page about we need to get one of these things.
They're very cool. It was about 5 years ago. I have a product that I created back in 2005 and was able to patent it. And I tried to make a second attempt to make it work. And part of that involved getting a 3D printer. But at the time, and I'm kind of an 80s guy, so technology can be a little elusive for me. I could not grasp how to get the designs into the computer so that it would actually print. And so I ended up just selling it and getting out of it. But now I see, as I mentioned a moment ago, all these parts for action figures and all this, that people are somehow understanding it all and whipping this stuff out. It's beyond me, but I think it's fascinating.
I'm with you. Like I'm in between. Like I see students of mine, or even my son, like they pick up on this stuff light years faster than we do, like that I do at least. And I'm willing to spend the time and learn certain things. Like, but like this, like my son and both of my sons have started coding, but they're coding things that are Star Wars based. They do scratch things and they try to build their own Star Wars video games because they love Star Wars and they love the science behind it. But I watched them do it. I'm like, how did you know how to move this? And they just, it's just almost like, well, they've been in the technology world their entire lives.
Right. They're born into it.
I'm born in '80s, so I grew into it. I mean, I remember typing my first book report on a typewriter, and then going to the library for one of the 4 computers that had the internet. You know, different world.
Yeah, different world. I'm back from the 60s when you had this thing called a pencil that had lead at one end and a rubber eraser at the other end. So let me kind of move forward here a little bit. There's yourself, there's your sons, your daughter, your wife. Who is the collector?
Mostly me. I collect. My sons are into some comic books. Like they want the run that I have. So we're trying to get multiple runs from that old vintage run. My middle son Shane is huge into Legos. Loves Star Wars and Jurassic Park Legos. So
Legos.
yeah, when he's like helping out around the house, instead of like giving him allowance, he's like, "Can I have a Lego this time?" And like after every few weeks, we'll get him a Lego. He builds it in no time, and then he displays his Legos in his room. I think I might have sent you a picture of him holding up all of his little tiny Lego figures that are all
Yes.
He takes a lot of pride in his little Lego collection, and space is a concern for him because now I bought him a little display cabinet, and now he has so many Legos that now we might have to get another one. So he's suffering as I'm suffering.
Yeah,
My
interesting.
daughter collects anything pink. It doesn't matter what it is. Pink, she wants it. Yeah. But she does like creepy stuff. It's very odd. She likes pink and she likes stuff that no little kid should like. She likes like some like creepy things. She's got that weird, dark, twisted humor. She like loved Nightmare Before Christmas and Gravity Falls and like the creepy stuff. So she can be sweet, but she can also be like Wednesday Addams.
So when you're collecting these items, would you consider yourself obsessive, compulsive? Is it within a budget? Are you under control?
Yeah.
Are you out of control?
So I'd like to say I'm in control when it comes to getting items. So like I definitely am not running out every day grabbing items, but I am obsessive in hunting for items. So every day before I go to bed, I'll grab my phone and go through my contacts and go through the sites and watch an auction. I do that every day, but not for a long time. 20 minutes before I go to bed. I might do it, 10, 15 minutes in the morning. I'll get an alert on my phone. So the hunt, my fear is that something's going to pop up that I'm not going to see that I would have pulled the trigger on and said, that would have been a great deal and I wanted that item. So I don't want to miss that. So I guess you could say I'm obsessive with the hunt, but the budget is very real for us. 3 kids living in New York, college coming up in a few years, investing for 529s and whatnot. So it's, most of my items like 20, 30, $40. My wife and I have a pretty good understanding and rule. It's like, get what you need to, but if it's over $100, we should have a discussion about it before you go grab it. Like if you go home, if you go out and you hit the antique shop and it's a $30 item and you want it, go grab it. If it's $100, give me a call before we go spend $100 on something.
Interesting.
It worked. It works for us, and
Sure.
it keeps us grounded, and it probably keeps my display small.
You have hit on 2 words that come up in all of the discussions. The first one is the hunt, and specifically that word, because I think that's where a lot of people get as much excitement is the research and the seeking out for those items.
Yep, absolutely. I love watching the auction, and when the items come up that I'm interested in, there's this other guy that always is battling against me. And I see him every time. I'm like, oh, damn, he's online tonight. And I'm like, my items are coming up in half an hour. This guy's online. And I'll like comment, I'm like, hey, is it time for you to go home? Time to go to bed? And so it's friendly, but I do want him to go away.
Right.
So the hunt is probably the biggest part of it.
The other word that hasn't come up in this interview and has in the last 3, and that is dusting.
Dusty?
No, dusting, as in cleaning it off.
Yeah. I closed this up, and my comics are boarded and bagged and in boxes and plastic.
Good.
So there's not much dusting for me. The only time I do cleaning is when I have like a couple of figures. I have like an ATST, a snow speeder. I buy those that would be considered like parts vehicles, and then I'll hunt down the parts because the hunt is fun, and I'll clean those. And the Mighty Falcon and the snow speeder, they didn't work, so I had to take them apart, resolder wires, clean up terminals. So I enjoy that part of it, like trying to solve a problem and getting it for $25 and spending a couple bucks. I enjoy that. I mean, I would love to have these things boxed, but at the same time, the hunt is there and the budget is restrained, and my kids get to watch me do it and see me take care of these things. So I hope to spread that to them, that there's value in the process.
Right. Aside from your immediate family, who sees your collection?
I mean, because of where it is, anyone that walks through, I mean, I have friends coming over to help me work on the house. Occasionally a neighbor will come down here. They probably, and like sometimes when I'll go to post like a picture of my toothbrushes to a Star Wars collectible site, and I accidentally post it to my personal Facebook, which is just family and friends, and they're like, "What is this?" They had no idea that I have a collection like this. And then like sometimes someone will be interested. They're like, "Wait a minute, my husband collects this stuff too." And then we have contact and talking about it, which is really fun and interesting. But more often than not, people are like, "I had no idea you were into this stuff." And then if you don't do it, I don't think, or you collect something, I don't think you understand it. It's a little bit of a bug that you're bit with, and they're kind of like question like, "Why do you do it?" Like it's just plastic or paper. It's not worth anything, and it's kind of hard to explain that to somebody. But they're good people, and everyone's got their thing that they're into.
Right, right. So out of all the items you have, 600 comic books, the action figures, the Pez dispensers, the lunch boxes, and I did want to kind of make a note. I did see picture of a couple of different lunch boxes, if I recall right.
Yeah, I have two up here. I've got the Return of the Jedi one and the Empire Strikes Back one. I bought them at auction, pretty good price. They're in relatively good condition. The thermoses are with them. The side panels are.
It was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
Was the
so
thermos
here's
included?
what happened. This one came with the correct thermos, and it's in really good shape. And I remember having lunch boxes like this when I was a kid. I accidentally stole one from Chief John's. I was holding it, waiting to be checked out, and I walked out of the place with my mom. And I was like, "Mom, and she yelled, and I was like, "Let's go back in and pay." And she was like, "Just get in the car." So this other one, the Empire one, it came with the wrong thermos. It came with the thermos from '77, the original metal lunchbox with the X-wing on it. There's a barber around the corner from me in Rocky Point, New York. He's known as the Jedi Barber. You go in this guy's shop, and it looks like any one of our basements. It's displays and dioramas and costumes of all Star Wars stuff. It's amazing. That was his lunchbox as a kid. He doesn't have a thermos. So I walked in and I'm like, "Hey, look what I got." And he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "This belongs with that. And I know you're not going to sell me that. So here's the thermos. Cut my hair. I'm out of here." And
Oh,
he was
wow.
happy to see that.
Wow, very cool. That's great. I bet you he was real happy with that. So
Yeah.
with all of those items that you have, what is your favorite item?
Favorite. I think I might have mentioned a few, but my favorite items are probably, honestly, probably the helmet
Wow,
that my students helped me get, because
very cool.
it was a total cool surprise. I donated to one of their fundraisers, and these kids were some of the best kids to work with in Science Olympiad and Stage Crew. I had a lot of fun with them, and they knew, like, we were all kind of geeky kids, and they could tell that I was one too, and they helped me get that. So that was really, really nice. They gave me a nice little note with it as to like who made it and where it came from, and how it was painted by a member of the 501st for an awards dinner in San Diego. So that's probably top three. My next ones are probably this guy here. We got a VHS that's signed by 3 of the original actors, and unfortunately, they're all passed. I got this authenticated by JSA. It's all real. It's got Jeremy Bullock, David Prowse, Peter Mayhew. They're all on there. This I got in an auction for a really, really inexpensive price, because they could not tell us if it was authentic or not. A person bought a large storage unit. They found that in there. I was up late at night, spending my 30 minutes watching, came up with it. I was like, I have to have it. I'll take a risk on it. And I spent $50 at an event to get it authenticated, and it came back as real. So to me, like, to have that was really nice to have. Those are probably 2 of my favorites. And the one my son made, and my bandolier, because it was like one of the first Star Wars things I ever got.
Awesome. Yeah, great answers. For the novices out there, those autographs, those characters you're talking about, Boba Fett, Darth Vader, and Chewbacca, were the guys that autographed.
Yeah, I have a few of those, but like to have them all on one was really cool.
That's really awesome. I love, Jerome, how Star Wars has kind of become a family thing for you. You talked about in conversations with the kids about it. When the first boy was in the crib, you had the posters up over his, on display there. You have the Wednesday mornings Mandalorian watch before you go to school, before they go to work, all that good stuff. What would you say is your favorite series, favorite book, favorite comic book, favorite movie, television series of Star Wars? What do you like the best?
It's tough. That's a really, really good question. And I know it's an important one. it is hard to not to pick one, but like honestly, like I feel like as you go through your life, you can kind of connect to a different character at each almost like chapter of your own life. When I was a little kid, Luke Skywalker was amazing to me. I wanted to be Luke. That was like the best character in anything going on TV. Like now I'm a little more, I don't know, skeptical. Now I'm kind of like, I can really relate to Ahsoka Tano, who walked away from it all because she didn't agree with everything. And like the idea of like the gray Jedi is very appealing to me. The Mandalorian who holds to a set of ideals and rules that he found that he can agree with and live with, and the protectiveness of him with his with Baby Yoda. I'm gonna get yelled at for calling him Baby Yoda. Grogu. Yeah, but it depends on the year or the month. It's shifted. Like there are certain ones that are always like close that you love. Like for me, like for a long time, I loved Boba Fett. And then there were certain things in the past few books, the past few shows where I was like, Mandalorian is what Boba Fett was to me growing up in all the books. And the feeling that you get from watching Mandalorian is what you kind of grew up and thought of Boba Fett. So now I'm like all about Mandalorian as opposed to Boba Fett. And his value dropped after his TV show.
Well, maybe we'll get a Book of Boba Fett chapter 2 and that'll go back up.
I hope he goes full on Tony Soprano gangster style and just accepts that, and that's who he is for now on, as opposed to like kind of a bounty hunter who doesn't know how to be a gangster.
It seemed like such a layup going into that show. Just give us a little bit of what we want that we know of a Boba Fett, and you're on the right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Went off the rails a bit.
So if you had the ability or the magic wand, out of all the characters, is there anyone that you'd like to be?
Like to be? That's hard. Mandalorian is sticking out. Like it just appeals to so many parts of the Star Wars universe that you get to pick little bits and pieces that you can enjoy. You get a little bit of all of it. You can go talk to Jedi. You can go talk to other bounty hunters. You can go work with the Empire. Like you get to be within and amongst all of it and choose your own path is kind of nice. So that would be really nice.
And so kind of wrapping up this interview, is there any particular advice that you might pass along to current collectors or future collectors?
Collect what you like. It doesn't matter if it has value. It doesn't matter if someone thinks it's silly. If it makes you happy, collect that. Right. That's what I'd say to anyone that's starting to collect. And advice for, what was the other part of the question?
Again, what advice would you give to either current or future collectors?
Current is to try to keep it under control and within your means, because this is like anything else. It's, if you have an addictive personality, which I think all collectors do, there's a fine line between collecting and hoarding. And I don't want to go down that line where you're walking between boxes to sit at your dining room table. So fine line, and it could go spiraling fast. Be careful.
Hear that, Jim?
Well, fantastic. Jerome, thank you very, very much for participating. Your information has been very valuable and very enlightening. I'm sure that many of the people who are watching this will also gain a lot of education out of it. I want to thank you for participating, and I want to wish you the best of luck with your collection, as well as your continuing voyage with your family.
Thank you so much, Jim, Jack. I really appreciate the opportunity. This was a lot of fun. I walked in a little nervous and not knowing what to expect, but you guys made it really easy. And Jim, if you ever want to sell those books over your left shoulder, yeah, those ones, shoot me an email.
Will do. Thank you again.
I'm just going to remind everyone really quick out there in YouTube land to go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content like this. I also have my own channel, Jack in the Box. You can tune into that channel, check out some vintage Star Wars action figures there. Go ahead and like this episode if you made it this far in the episode. Obviously, there's something that you liked about this. You can leave some comments down below as well. Talk to Jerome, ask him some questions. I'm sure he'll come back and check out the episode and reply to any of those comments. And Jerome, again, just thank you so much for your time today. And as the Mandalorian says, this is the way.
This is the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Good night.
much.
That's one less rebel. Did you see where he went? We've lost sight of him, sir.